Welcome everyone. Today we have a tier list for Underlords. This is the latest updated tier list, adjusting for the new items like the contract, the new items like Scythe of Wise and Force Staff. The tier list will be in 4 parts. The first part is tier 1 and tier 2 items, which are usually found on round 1 to 15. The second part is a tier 3 item list compared, and also tier 4 item list, also tier 5 item list. So there are 4 parts to this tier list. Let's get into it. On the top, we can see Smuggler being very top of the pick. And if you have seen my item tier rates by the rounds where items are dropped at percentage, you can see how powerful Smuggler is. Just give you guys a summary, you can be finding legendary tier 5 items at 30% at round 35 with the Smuggler. Without the Smuggler, you have to wait for round 40 to find those legendary items, which is tier 5. So Smuggler is a very top pickup for me with the tier 1 and tier 2 items. Followed by the Smuggler, which is top picks of my S tier. The next tier are the situational tiers. The Embarrassment is pretty nice situational. The Silver Lining has been nerfed, but I think it still have potential because you might win, you might lose, you still make some economy. I feel economy is very important in the game. Other than those two, all the global items require us to have a form of synergy that goes with it. Because it's situational, it can go all the way down to the bottom, all the way to the top if you fit the synergy. Ideally, I want to highlight a few. The Warlock, the Inventors, the Brownies, the Humans into Undead, or Heartless can be very strong. Also the Druids and Knights, they are very strong. But the idea is, if you already have them, it's great. If you plan to go into it, it's a little gamble. It can pay off, it can backfire. Keep in mind, if you want to gamble with it without those units, you basically just lose one item. I'm not suggesting we gamble on them, but plan your build accordingly. If you're good with trolls, maybe you pick the troll item. If you're good with warriors, pick the warrior item. Very situational. And followed by that, we have some of the higher standard items, I believe, in the early rounds of the game. We have the Master of Madness, can be used on Bloodseeker, can be used on Draw Ranger, can even be used on Dragon Knight in the mid game. We have the Mana Boots that gives everyone mana. It's like a mini Crystal Maiden, which is very important to cast early for the initiators, for the backline mages. Octarine Core, Void Stone also gives. Void Stone will give us mana, which on attack is very crucial for units like Lich, Keeper of the Light, even any mage lineup, any initiator lineup. Octarine Core can turn a unit that goes insanely strong with healing, say a Twin Protector, or a unit with like a Necromancer also heals. Also, Octarine Core can be used on units like Lich with a decent CD but very strong spells. Of course, we can't miss the Blink Dagger. I'm sure some of you have seen how strong the Blink Daggers are. The Blink Dagger is very strong because of the mana it gives and how it takes a unit into it. I love the Explosive Goblins. I love the Blink Axe, the Blink Tide, very strong item. Definitely try it out. It's great on initiators to distract the backline, and also if you're exploding, it's even stronger. Followed by that, we have the average tier item. I feel those items are somewhat average. They can be a little baity at times, but most of the time they're just like, okay, I have nothing else to pick, maybe I'll pick this. The globals, let's look at those. The Blood Contract into the Blood Bond can be good for the early game, but it does fall off. We have seen players using this effectively with 4 ogres, with 2 ogres and 2 warlock, and putting this on a Medusa to have her do the most damage. But in reality, that's only one Medusa that deals damage, and you're missing about 4 or 3 units that can be stunning like Taunt Hunter, Conquer, Disruptor. So it is a trade-off. So it is more early game centric item. It can go into late game, but it's a little difficult to adjust. You need the perfect ogre synergy, pretty much. We were just reminded by one of our very friendly viewer that the Aegis has been changed. Aegis is now changed. It no longer protects you from taking damage upon loss and no longer protects the losing streak. Aegis now protects you from fatal damage. That means death. So if you're about to die on this round, you will delay your death by 1 round, which is very interesting. It's basically an early game item invested for the late game. The position of Aegis is still here for me because we need items that actually help us win. If you die this round, you delay by 1 round. You might be lucky with your position up, but likely you can't be top 2 because if you lose to him here, you can't defeat him, you still lose him in the next round. So it's as if you're buying an item that doesn't increase your comeback capacity, it delays that. It doesn't invest in the early game, it will invest in the late game. So it's a little awkward. It's still an average item, nothing to pick from, I'll still pick it. Summoning Stone can be a bait. So Summoning Stone is a lower tier because the summoning units are a little unpredictable sometimes, and most of them melee, except the Venom Ward. So it gets a little awkward. The humans into 50% reduction to debuff, it's a little underrated, but most of the time we don't pick it because it's not offensive, it's too defensive. And because of that, we'll just, we wouldn't pick this one because not only does it increase our survivability most of the time, it will reduce the the debuff, but it's more tailored for late game. You don't want a tailored late game item for the early game. That's why it's over here. Blackmail, it's okay. It has its uses, but most of the time you need an HP hero like Pudge or a strong unit, maybe a 3-star unit, to make the most use out of it. Because if you die too fast, the 30% won't matter. This particular brooch will give a 50 mana gain, 50% more mana gain as you receive damage. Great on the front line, great on the initiators. This can actually move up a little bit, maybe somewhere down to the middle, between A tier and B tier. Armor and regen are both defensive, while the offensives are Blightstone and Gloves. Blightstone works well with Heartless, while the Glove increases your attack speed, increase proc rate, and also increase your chance of mana gain as you attack faster. Now, we're getting into the slightly not so strong but situational items. The Strange Bedfellow. It is considered a little bait on sometimes, definitely, but I have seen people making it work, so it's possible. If you have anti-mage early, you want to go into demons, it works. We have made 16k damage Terrorblade 3-star wizard, so it can work, but it's lower because most of us will see this as a bait and it's not very useful. Similarly, 250 HP or like 21 attack is just very minimal. It's okay early game, but as we go into the mid game, as units become 2-star, those are not very strong. And of course, lastly, the 15% magic defense, it's taking up a spot for my crucial unit. If my Troll Warlord have this item, I can give him something better, like Maelstrom, or maybe a Master Madness. This item is like trying to steal a crucial spot for my item space. If I had more item slot, I might put this higher, but at the moment, we only have one item slot. If I give it to my Shadow Shaman, it's not going to change much. If I give it to my Dragonite, it's a waste. So it's the most awkward position to be picking this item for the tier 1 and tier 2, I believe. This is the tier 3 items by rounds. Why is it by rounds? Because only around 15 are those items going to appear. At round 15, the estimate rates are 30% for the tier 3 items. It goes up further, and for the complete rate list for those rounds and items drops, please check my item guide for the rounds. Now let's get into it. After round 15, we start to see drops of 3 tier items. On those items, this particular, there's a little typo there. On those items, the Skadi is most versatile because it not only gives health, it also debuffs the enemy. With a buff to the Medusa, she can debuff multiple enemies, and we all know how strong, slow of movement and attack speed can be against melee and range units. I picked this because it does fit most of the lineup, and it can't go wrong when you pick this item. It's like it gives HP and also gives debuff. What more can we ask, right? So it is definitely not the strongest item, but it works. Now, my tier A items is a great pickup. Firstly, let's look at the 2 items, then we look at the global item. The 2 defensive items are Vanguard and Mechanism. One makes one unit super tanky, the other one heals everyone. Those can help the team with a good tank. Also, with Aquan or someone who can use the mech, we can heal the backline, which tends to be squishy. The higher class criminal is great in most cases, except the fact sometimes you want to stay on lower level for higher rates. For example, the new change of rates, the tier 2 units actually get lower rates as you go up in level to level 9, from 30% to 25%, I believe. So when that happens, if you have highest class criminal, at level 8 you already have lower rates for your tier 2 units. If you're rolling for your 2-star Chaos Knight, 2-star Luna, this can backfire. But in other cases, this is very strong because you find the legendaries fast. We all know how strong a 2-star Lich is, Tidehunter, Gyro, you name it. So it has a little double edge potential, but very strong item. Now, I'm sure let's look at this. We'll be looking into the tier B situational section. You might be saying, hey, I have seen very strong, the scaled retaliated damage. I have no hunters are very strong. Yes, they are very strong. Also, the salmon plague is very strong. But yes, they are situational. If you don't have the scaled, if you don't have hunters, then this item is not good for you. It will go up in tier if you have those units in the lineup because you're already in the mid game. You can't kind of say, hey, I find a scale, I'm going to change my mages into scale. It's hard to do that. That's why those are situational. Those items can work on most lineup on the top 2 tier, while those items are more situational. Let's talk about the B tier situational. The Heartless into no healing, it's very good if you have 4 Heartless, because some lineup, especially now with the change of Warlocks, do run Warlocks quite frequently, and if you can stop the healing, well, you're getting half of the job done, because if they can't heal, they're very squishy. So I like this item. Shaman Plank, well, the Shamans, 17%, the magic number for Dota 2, and those do work quite often with Arc Warden. No need to say much about Hunters, because we know they hit harder with this item. The Assassins, the blind and the buff to this item is nice, but most of the cases, if you go into a defensive position, Assassins can't do much. The highlight here will be those 4 items actually. The Retaliate will actually do a lot of damage in the mid game, because each time someone hits Starter or Medusa, maybe Slug, they will take a lot of damage, about 240 damage. So imagine this. It's like someone touches you all of a sudden, in 3 seconds they take 240 damage. That's a lot of damage. That's higher than most units damage with 2 attack. And that's incredible. This item is very strong with the scale. Definitely try it out and let me know how it works. With the Final Flash, it's fancy, it's nice, but ideally you want to go with Warlocks, because Warlocks lifesteal allow you to use Final Flash to the most potential. By doing so, your mages can get a chance to cast. You want instant casting mages. Linus 1, Park can be 1, Razor can be 1, Keep Out the Light is awkward. He's on 30%. If someone's hitting him, he's not going to survive, so Final Flash can be good, but not game changing sometimes. Of course, if it's on the Lich and we cast multiple times, it's game changing. The Eidolons. Why Eidolons are good? Because Eidolons do split up. Now imagine this, you're fighting someone. As a mage, you want to delay the engagement. If your elemental frontlines like Morphling, Tiny, Enigma, or Razor dies, you want them to delay the fight so your mages like Keeper can cast the magic. Also, they add down to some damage as you can, and sometimes when you get wiped by the enemy, those Eidolons survive. Your Eidolons can kill the enemy mages or whatever's left. Also delay your death by a little bit. Of course, 2 more binomials are necessary for this to be working effectively. We all know Scrappy is ING, 20% to find more gold, and if I'm going with Scrappy, I'll definitely pick this item. The Basher and Relic. Very nice on units that attack fast or units like Luna that bounces, that requires attack damage. The Force Staff. It is the new item. This item will randomly push your unit 6 cells, so 6 blocks. It might push your unit out of position like Keep Up the Light, Crystal Maiden. It might not do that. So it's a little awkward at times. Again, it's situational, because if you have nothing to pick, you can pick this one. One thing to highlight over here is the power of Shaman Plank. We have tried it with Arc Warden and 3 Shamans. The chicken do work and they do jump around, but you still need the damage. If you have damage like Enigma, Shadow Fiend, Keep Off the Light or Lich, this can be a very strong item, buys them the time for multiple casts. On the bottom of the tier, those are not weak items, but rather more situational. The Elves are great. The downside is if you go invisible, they're going to focus on someone else. And also, if you go invisible, the mages will still cast magic. It's as if the mage knows where you are. So, you know how mages are so dominating? That's why elves haven't been gaining as much footing, and elf assassins are not strong if you're just going with 3 assassins. The Dragon's Horde is a little awkward. You want to be saving your gold up, then you want to spend your gold to find your units. But if you spend your gold, you lose damage. In the late game, you want to go all in with your gold, because, you got to find your units, right? But no one wants to die at 50 gold or 60 gold. This item makes it conflicting, but this can be strong if you already have knights. If you're steamrolling, you steamroll even further with Dragon Knight. Lastly, 50% magic resistance and 10 HP regen is nice. It can be given to a crucial unit before you find the tailored item third. Let's say my Medusa. I always prefer Skadi over this item because it is defensive, but I can be defensive and offensive. So this item is a little awkward. If nothing to pick from, or if I'm given the choice of 2 tier and 3 tier units, I can pick this one. But in most cases, items that doesn't contribute to the team only for a unit, even if this unit survived the longer, you're facing 5 mages versus you who only survived. Have the item tiers for tier 4 items. Those items do start to show at around 25 and 30%. If you want to see the full rate tables, see my videos on the rate tables, my friends. I have the full rates for all the tier from tier 1 to tier 5 items. After round 25, you start to see tier 4 items, and this does not disappear. You will go all the way up to round 50 to see the tier 4 items. And let's have a look at the tier 4 items. Those are the game-changing items most of the time. We have the Refresher, Dagon, BKB, and Pipe. We all know how strong the Refresher is. On a Lich, on a Gyro, on anything that casts that, does things. And it can be very powerful on Arc Warden, of course. Let's look at Dagon though. Dagon is an item that has underestimated values because, let's say, if I'm a unit, usually 2-star units have somewhere from 2000 to 1300 HP. Dagon will do 800 HP, and most units don't have magic resistance. A unit that is about 1600 loses health to 800, then it dies to a Dagon, but you usually cast a spell around 800 to 500 range of HP. So you deny a unit from casting a spell. This is particularly the case for Tidehunter and Techies at 1-star. I have seen my Tidehunter and Techies dies instantly to the enemy Dagon, and enemy units legendary have died to my units like this. So it's like denying a legendary that's 1-star, and that can be crucial. You stop an Enigma, you stop a Techies or a Tidehunter, that can be massive. Of course, Dagons can be replicated on Arc Warden. If you haven't tried it, definitely check it out. BKB. Most of us might see BKB as not very highly tiered because, it's magic immunity. Sometimes no one's hitting me. Why do I need magic immunity? BKB works wonderfully because you will purge your existing debuff. You allow you to be spell immune, so you can't be stunned, can't be silenced, can't be hexed. You can still be bashed though by the basher, and you can still be taunted by X. But most of the time those don't happen. So you can give BKB to your initiator, and all of a sudden your frontline Conquer, Disruptor, Tidehunter, or even Enigma can be magically immune and guarantee a spell. In the late game, it's so important to guarantee a spell off. Sometimes it's magical. You see an Enigma casting, you're like, oh yes, I won this round. You see an Enigma getting hexed, it's all over. So BKB is the item that secures your side of RNG and guarantee you get the first cast. Pipe of Insights. This is a magic defensive item for the unit that wears it. I also give 400 magic defense for all the units around it. It's a shield, basically 400 more HP against magic. This is massive because it has a good range. It also protects you against mages. Mages like Lich, Keeper of the Light can one-shot your entire team at 2-star if your units are still 2-star, but this item allowed them to survive and follow up against the mage. So this is a very crucial item against mages or even lineup that does some magic, because the backline is squishy, and if you can defend yourself against the magic, it can change the course of the fight. Because your backline survive, their backline finish off one wave, you can counter up with another wave. On the next tier, we have the Hyperstone, Radiance, Crystallis, and Cypher Wise. The Hyperstone and Crystallis do serve a purpose. You want to consider, does this unit need more attack speed or does it need more damage? For a unit with low attack speed, Hyperstone or the Moonshot is better, but for units with enough attack speed like Terrorblade, the attack damage Crystals can be better. So it's a deciding factor. Those are equally on par, but sometimes if you have enough attack speed, you want damage, so you want to balance those. Radiance, we all know how strong Radiance is. Radiance Warlock is really strong with lifesteal. Radiance on a really strong tank like Purge or a Knight can do wonders. So Radiance is a really good teamfight item, but it doesn't change the course of fight. You're doing damage, yes, but in the late game, those damage was mitigated by the scaled on the enemy team, maybe by the knights, maybe just by the pipe. So it is a good item, but in the late game, it won't be game changing. What will be game changing is Cypher Wise though, but it's a funny one. See, the unit that hits your units will be hexed into a chicken for 4 seconds. It's not as strong as the Dota 2 self-advice, and there's no AI, whoever hits you first. So sometimes the range unit will hit you first because they attack faster, sometimes a Crystal Maiden might hit you first, but other times the frontline initiators will hit you first if you position your unit correctly. So it's ideal to have the unit with this item to be positioned in front of a Tide, Disruptor, maybe Enigma. Just you want to pick those legendaries, you want to catch them, you want to hex them. On the B tier, the Maelstrom doesn't give you attack damage, but with 25% proc on 4 targets, the Maelstrom is nice if you have enough attack speed if the unit is a range unit that's constantly attacking. The downside is, it's not guaranteed. You can be lucky with every proc, you can be really unlucky and get nothing. But if you're running a mage lineup, the lightning can be helpful because it's supposed to be magic damage. And also, if you're running a Chore or any lineup, this item can go up in the tier list. But most of the time, if it's just like a normal lineup that doesn't have much attack speed, this item is average. It's definitely better than tier 3 items, but in terms of tier 4 items, it is of a lower grade. Family discount. It's a nice item if you're going for multiple 3 stars, like knights, like scrappies, like things that wants everything. But if you're only looking for legendaries or only keeping units at 2 star, it's not that good. You want to consider how much HP do you have? Can you survive long enough to make this work? Or are you going to go in by leveling or rolling and you're only looking for two units? If I'm only looking for Titan and Medusa, and this item is not going to help much. I prefer item that help me now instead of item that save me 5 or 10 gold. But of course, I have found multiple 3 stars with scrappies and knights this way because I bought everything very cheap because I want a wide range of units. That's the difference maker. So this is a situation item. Of course, on the last tier of tier B, in Vicious Intent, it's also a situation item. What I like to think about is, if I'm killing an enemy, well, I'm winning. If I'm winning convincingly, I'll do a lot of damage. But if I'm not winning, then this item doesn't help. So it's like if you win, you win more. If you lose, it doesn't protect you. But that said, if you find a good positional adjustment, or all of a sudden you did a massive damage because of random tide ulti, because of random casting, and you just catch them, this can be useful. So it is again a little random. It's not guaranteed like those items. So I tend to not pick this item unless I have no better choices. And lastly, we have the Battle Fury. Battle Fury only cleaves at 30%, and it's for melee units only. A melee unit is usually not 3 star. Even at 3 star, a melee unit is not very strong. It might be hitting up to like 400. You cleave for 120 for a purple item. That's not a lot. A Battle Fury in the other games give mana gain and bonus attack, but here just with the cleaving it's not very high. So this item definitely needs some work up. I feel this item is such a bait, I usually ignore it and still pick a tier 3 item because of that. This is our last tier list for the tier 5 legendary items. We can see those items start to appear around 40 with the rates of 70%, 30%. So 70 is for the purple units, 70 is for the purple items, while the 30 is for the legendary tier 5 items. Now, if you have a smuggler, you can be finding those items around 35. That's how strong this is, because being 5 rounds ahead, sometimes we can't live to round 40. At 35 we can survive, maybe we can't get to 40. So that's why Smuggler is such a strong item for the early, mid and late game. Let's have a look. On the S tier, the game changing items are the +1s, which you add another unit to the board. I don't think we need to explain that. We know how strong it is when we have 12 units as a hunter, knight and undead, and also humans and everything. The other 3 items are all game changers because they debuff or buff your units. The first item is Shivers. The armor is not that crucial, it's the AoE slow and damage it deals. My Tide Hunter was doing the highest damage on my mage team because of this item, because it's a relative size damage, also it slows the enemy. Enemy hunters will attack slow, it's like an AoE Lich buff. Lich will be hitting everyone with his slows, just imagine that. We know how strong Lich is, this is how strong the Shivers is. Position your unit in the middle and he will be sure to catch most of them and do massive damage and debuff. Assault Carries, very strong item for offensive and defensive. You can be offensive by positioning it on your main tank to minus armor off their front lines, or you can be defensive, positioning it on your unit that's in the middle of the party to give armor and attack speed to yourself, to your units. So it's a very nice item, and this tends to buff your units so much more. Keep in mind, you do want this unit with this item to be surviving for long enough. So you do want to protect him, or if you're offensive, you want to give it to a very tanky tank at the front, or maybe you want to be focusing on a unit of the enemy. You can be adjusting the lineup right in front of this particular Tide Hunter or this particular Disruptor. Have this item on the unit in front of it, and have your strongest attackers, say Doom, say Shadowfiend, say Gyrocopter, say those units right in front of it, and try to snipe it before you cast a spell. Of course, it can backfire. If you give it enough mana, it might just cast onto you, so now play with care. Talking about initiators, that's why I believe the Bloodthorn can be good, simply because it will target a unit which gains mana fast, and it will silence it, and then you can gain critical attacks on the unit. So this item is good in terms of offense because it gives attack damage and critical hits, but the key is the silence. Enemies usually want the crucial stunners or initiators like Enigma, maybe Tide or Medusa to be casting as fast as they can. If they are casting fast and if this item silences them, it's incredibly good. But of course, other units might be taking mana fast, and all of a sudden you're silencing a random Keeper of the Light or random unit that's not very crucial, then this item might not be the top tier. So it is a little situational, but in other times I believe it is slightly stronger than the other 4 over here. Situational, game changing. So let's look at the tier A. Why do I call them situational and game changing? Because we know how strong Divine Reaper is. 300 plus damage, come on. The Medusa will be hitting off her mind with this item. And a lot of units, say Hunters, say even Mages, can hit quite a bit. But keep in mind, if you lose the round to anyone, this item will go to them. So if you already lost to him, there's no way to come back if you give this item to him. So it's like at the last ditch of effort to come back or consolidate your strength. So this item is a double-edged sword, and it is not strong enough for the team. Because yes, you may be hitting a lot, but unless you're Medusa that hits everyone, you can't do much as a mage with it, you can't do much as a warrior with it, unless it's on the Troll Warlord, but it's not as game-changing as the top 4. And because of that, same situation happened to the defensive item with Heart. A unit that regenerates HP and has 1000 more HP, it's great. But compared to other legendaries, if no one's hitting you or if you're not dying, it doesn't change the course of the fight. The Tide will still stun on your team, the Disruptor will still AoE silence, and the Keeper is still going to cast onto you. Because it doesn't change the late game, when we're already round 40 by the way, so it's a good item. Sometimes you can start something that's unkillable, say like 10,000 HK Axe, it works. But other times, I feel it's less relevant, less impactful for the late game. This last ditch of effort. For this item, this gains percentage damage depending on how much health we have lost. It's likely to gain close to up to 30% normal attack damage, increased damage, when we have lower HP, close to 5 or 10% HP. It is a nice item. Yes, the normal attack does help, but for lineup that doesn't attack normally, say we're not Hunters, we're Mages, or if we're Scrappies, our attacks don't do that much. It helps as a tier 5 item, but I'll still prefer the game-changing ones on top. But you know, when we're giving a choice of a tier 4 or tier 5, I'll still take this for sure. The downside is, if you have lots of HP, picking this item doesn't really change much. Well, you know, no one wants to be low on HP. If I'm winning with 70%, then this item won't be helping as much if I'm down to 10 or 15%. But the sad thing is, if you're down to 10 or 15%, one more round might be your last. Lastly, the item that I thought was a great item, but after thinking about it, after trying it, it turns out it's not so great. Why is that? A free recruitment every round means you gain 2 more gold every round. But let's think about this. You're pretty much into round 40. How many additional rounds are we seriously going to survive? To round 50 maybe? So, would you sell any of the tier 5 item for 20 gold? I wouldn't sell them for 20 gold. So if that's the case, then you know, that's not very practical. Maybe give me 2 more rows, I'll take it, but 1 more row is maybe just desperate effort. If I don't have anything else that's tier 5, I might take it, but if I have another choice, I'll definitely take everything else but this one. Because I don't see a lot of people surviving to around 50, and you have to survive to around 50 to make 20 gold of value for a tier 5 item. That's just too low. We need a buff on this item for sure. So to summarize for this tier list, it is broken into 4 parts. The tier 1 and 2 is a part for the early game, then tier 3, then tier 4 and tier 5. Usually tier 3 is into the mid game, while tier 4 and tier 5 is into the late game. To see a full rates here, I have made a table of rates for what round, what items drop on what round. I also made a full video explaining what we should look out for with those rates and how we can best use of those rates. So thank you so much guys for watching this particular item tier list, and let me know in the comments below if you have any suggestions or if you know anything that you want to suggest with the next guide. Also, if I make any mistakes or if you want me to add anything, let me know as well. Thank you so much for watching this particular guide. We did reach Big Boss 5 just today as well, before the making of this guide, so we're looking forward to be the Lord of the Spy as well. Very excited. So subscribe to my YouTube channel for high rank gameplays, guides, tier list, which will come weekly. Also subscribe and follow and support me on Twitch. Thank you so much everyone.